Welcome to the Holding Hope podcast. My name is Pam Orr, and I am the Executive Director for Fellowship Housing, a nonprofit that empowers single moms. The Holding Hope podcast is a space for courageous single moms to share their journeys. Through their stories, we will explore the life-changing power of hope. Each of these women inspires me, and I know they will inspire you as well. I'm so glad you've decided to listen. Welcome to the Holding Hope podcast, a space to share the stories of incredible single moms and their journey toward finding hope. My name is Pam Orr, and I am the Executive Director of Fellowship Housing, a nonprofit in the Chicagoland area that serves single moms. I will be your host today. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Evelyn, a resilient mother of 3 boys who has overcome significant challenges to find stability and strength. From facing homelessness to finding faith and community support, Evelyn's story is one of perseverance, hope, and transformation. Evelyn, it is so good to have you here today.
It's my pleasure to be here and share my story. I'm excited.
I'm excited for everyone to hear your story.
Thank you.
So you just graduated not too long ago from Fellowship Housing. I think it was October of 2023, correct?
Yes.
Not that long ago.
Yes, still fresh.
Still fresh. In your graduation speech, you said, "In my 35 years of life, I've never had stability." Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you unpack that for a little bit? Can you unpack that for us? Can you take us back to what it was like as a little girl growing up?
I grew up with a single mother, and she was always struggling, making ends meet. She was an immigrant here, so her English was not so good, so we helped her out a lot with that. But we were always just moving around the same areas, whether it was here, whether it was another state. We were just always moving around, trying to find cheaper places or, just money, struggling with financially.
What did your mom do to bring money in for the family?
She would have 2 jobs. I remember her working at Matt's Cookies, so she would always bring us cookies. But she would make she would always work 2 jobs. We would barely see her. We would always with my grandfather, who would watch us all the time. So she was never really in our lives when growing up, because she was just trying to make ends meet to get us through. Get through the rent and get through the bills and stuff. So,
did that entail changing schools quite often as well?
Yes.
What was that like as a young child?
It was challenging because we never had friends that we were able to grow up with. It wasn't easy. We never had friends, so we just had each other, my brother and my sister. And it was not easy.
Did you know as a young child that you didn't have much, that you did sometimes as a young child, it's just your life.
Right.
But did you know that life was hard and tough at that point?
No, I didn't. We just, we grew up and we're like, oh, this is what it is. No, it wasn't. We just went about, changing environments and,
Tell me more about your mom.
My mom, she's an immigrant. So she came here, she crossed the border and she was living in the state of New Mexico with her family, her brother and sisters. And she ended up coming to Chicago and making her life here. She grew up with her aunts because her mother passed away when she was 1. So her father, my grandpa, was an alcoholic. So he didn't raise them up until we grew up. We were like 5 or 6 is when he came into our lives to help my mom, working and stuff. But she grew up without a mother. She was raised with her aunts and 13 boys. So, it wasn't easy for her. So growing up, that's how I was able to understand her upbringing and why she was the way she was. But 13 boys? 13 boys. That was my aunt. Her aunt had 13 boys and was able to raise her as well.
Wow.
So, and her aunt it's my grandpa's sister. So
your mom was navigating a life here in the United States as an immigrant, a single mom of 3. And the language did not come easily for her.
Yes.
That must have been very challenging for her. My goodness.
It was. It made us grow up, because she was like, help me translate this, help me sign these documents, so we did have to help her and grow up a little bit faster than normal kids would.
For sure. How did your upbringing shape who you are today?
It helped me shape the way I am because I get accustomed to any environment that I'm in. I'm a rule follower, so if it benefits me, I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I wouldn't change any of the struggles that I've been through, only because, again, I'm strong. I can take anything. I don't take criticism. Anybody says anything, I'm like, okay. I don't let it. I learned how to deal with my emotions, and it's not easy. It's you got to train your brain.
Yeah.
But
so, Evelyn, you have 3 boys.
Yes.
Would you tell me about your 3 boys?
Yes. So Roger, who is turning 15 this year, he was my firstborn. And with him, I was actually homeless when he was 1, literally on his birthday. He turned 1. It was November 30th. It was his first birthday, and I was at the Wings homeless shelter with him. So this isn't my, fellowship housing wasn't my first rodeo. We had been, homeless before. So, but he has grown up with me, and he is awesome. He's amazing. He helps me with anything with the boys or anything that I need around the house. Ronnie is my 11-year-old, and he is an amazing cook. He makes dinner for us 2 or 3 times a week. I love to cook, so he learns by watching, and anything he's like, Mom, let me make it. So he's amazing.
That's incredible.
Yes. Angel is my 7-year-old, and he's just a kid. He's, he has all his brothers who help him out with anything, and they see that, they're like, why didn't Angel have to go through anything that we went through? And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's but Angel is awesome personality. He helps me out with everything as well, because he sees his brothers like, oh, and then Mom, what do you need help with? So, but
that sounds wonderful.
Yes. So.
What's it like being their mom?
It's amazing. I get so many compliments from people, from them, because we have monthly meetings, us 4, of like, what do you think we should do? How can I better myself for you guys? And I never get any, they're like, nothing, you're fine. I used to be a yeller. So, they're like, just you're yelling. And I'm like, okay. And again, that had something to do, in the last 2-3 years, I worked on my mental, and trying to be a better mom. And that was always it. It was the yelling. So I don't yell anymore. I whisper. So that way, if they can't hear me, I'm like, well, then you gotta be quiet then, right? So it just feels amazing knowing that they give me good feedback, and that they tell me, Mom, you're doing amazing, when sometimes I doubt myself a lot, and I'm like, what do you, and they're like, no, you're doing an amazing job. So it just feels good that we tell each other we love each other every day. They hug me, Mom, I love you, so it just feels amazing. I feel blessed to have 3 boys.
Wow. So let me get this straight. You have a monthly meeting with your 3 boys.
Yes.
What does that look like? Is there an agenda? Like, I'm so intrigued where you came up with this idea.
So in the middle of the month, it started last year, the beginning of last year, because they were always bickering and doing stuff. And I'm like, what's the problem? And they all wanted to talk at once. And I'm like, okay, raise your hand, and one of, oh, Ronnie does this, Angel does it, why can't, so they do have a chore chart. So it was like, why can't Angel's old enough to do this? So I was like, okay, we're going to have a monthly meeting, okay, in the middle of the month, and we'll figure out what the issues are, so it was them wanting a better schedule, cleaning schedule, because why doesn't he do this? Why, they cannot. So it was just adjusting to them getting older and them having more responsibilities and them wanting more responsibilities or less, or, so again, if they do stuff that they're not supposed to, they got the Wi-Fi taken away, they got this taken away. So in order for them to earn that, they got to follow the chore chart, do extra stuff, because I have a list of extra things that they can do if they want to earn back whatever they got taken away. So it just started with them wanting to talk all at once when I got off work. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have these once a month. And if we need more, we can do that. But once a month has been working good. So
that's incredible. I can only imagine that there are some listening that are thinking, I think I'm going to try that. That's a brilliant idea.
Because that way you get their feedback, and they're humans, they're kids, but they have opinions. And a lot of the times, you, as a single mom, you have so much stuff going on. You don't listen to your kids sometimes, or what's going on in school or, stuff like that. So I just wanted to take once a month or twice a month sometimes to just listen to them and just sit for an hour or two or however long they want to talk and throw out what's in their heads.
Wonderful. Well, that's amazing. I'd love to take us back. And you said that when your oldest was 1, you were in a homeless shelter.
Yes.
You were homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the events that led up to you being homeless, that led to you being a single mom?
Wanting better for my kids and not taking anything from men that have narcissistic traits, which I didn't know about. It was just wanting better for my kids, and my kids not having an upbringing of them seeing two people bicker and go back and forth. And I just wanted better for him, for my kids. At that time, he was 1. So I just wanted better. And, I felt like I needed to get away. I didn't have a place to stay. I was staying with his father, and it started to get physical. And I was like, oh no, I can't. So that's when I called Wings Homeless Shelter, and they were able to take us in as an emergency because of the physical abuse.
So a narcissist, help us to understand what it's like living with a narcissist. You mentioned some physical abuse. What was a day in your life like living with your child's father?
It wasn't easy. So it was just him trying to pick arguments about things that did not matter. Like, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I'm like, what's the issue? Why can't you cook like this? Or why can't you make this? Unnecessary stuff that I'm like, just stressed me out. It was like, he would get angry. It was a circle of abuse. He would get angry, and then it'd be the honeymoon stage, like, oh, okay, we're fine. And then it just kept going back and forth. It was stressful, very stressful.
So you left and went to Wings. So Wings is another amazing nonprofit that really focuses on serving women who are in abusive situations and helping them get out of those abusive situations. What was that like? And was that a direct path for you towards getting healthy?
Negative. So it is an awesome program, but I ended up going back to New Mexico with my mother, and then I ended up coming back. When I came back, I thought it was gonna work out again. That's where Ronnie came in. So I went back to the relationship because I didn't know any better. And I was like, I wanted to have my kids have the same dad. I was young. I don't know what I was thinking, but I had Ronnie with him again. Same dad. And he was a couple months old when it started up again. So we were fine for a couple months. And then it started up again, which led me to go back to Wings. So I went to Wings a second time when Ronnie was 1 or 2 years old. And they're like, oh, you're back. They recognize me. And I'm like, yes, when I left Wings, like I said, my mom was like, what are you doing there? You have a place over here with me. What, And then this guy brainwashed my head. I came back, and we had our own place. So that just gave him more of we're alone. So with Roger, we lived with his family.
Okay.
So, and then with Ronnie, we lived alone, and same thing. It was a couple months, and I was like, no. I thought it was going to be better. It wasn't. So, because, when you're young, you think men are going to change or you can change them. No, then you can't. So we went back to Wings. So the second time it did help me. But it was the same thing. I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to do the work. I didn't want to do the work. And I just thought it was easier to go back to my mom again. So it was like, I've been back and forth from here to New Mexico to living with my dad in California and just coming back. That all my friends are like, where are you now? I was just, because you're traveling across the country, what's going on? So at that time, my kids were young. So I was like, okay, I was just trying to find my place. Right. And I just kept leaving Illinois, and God just kept bringing me back. And I ended up coming back.
Okay.
So, like I said, I was at Wings. I left there because my mom's like, come on, really?
Yeah, come.
So, this time I came back and I met Angel's dad. I met Angel's dad, another narcissist. I had Angel. So because Angel's and I's dad, we had history. I knew him when I was 18. So I was like, oh, maybe this will work out, you know? He gave me everything before, maybe, you know. I didn't know any better. Like I said, I was raised with a single mom. I never knew anything about men and, you know, their intentions. And I didn't know. My mom never taught me that stuff. And they don't teach you that in school. They don't teach you about men and their intentions and, you know. But
yeah. I want to pause for a minute and go back to something that I think might be very helpful to some that are listening. You talked about you left Roger's dad, and then you ended up coming back to him. And then you went back to Wings, and they said, "Oh, you're back." You mentioned in your speech, your graduation speech, that your life was like the TV show, Netflix show Made.
MAID, yes.
And that show is a powerful show about how difficult it is for women who are in abusive situations to actually tear away, that it's very common for them to go back and forth.
Correct.
Why is it so hard to leave?
Because you're stuck. You feel like this is all you can get. This is all you know. Mentally, I wasn't healed, you know? So I'm like, okay, this is all I can get. You know, I'm going to go back. And I just wanted to keep my family together. So,
yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And I brought that up because I think there are those that may be in that cycle, that place, and for them to hear your story, and I hope they keep listening, hear your story of becoming whole and finding your self-worth and breaking free. It's interesting too. There's this theme of instability.
Yes.
Continued to really weave through your life as your 3 boys were born. Correct. Was there some comfort in the instability for you? Was it familiar? Maybe that's a better word.
Yes. So because again, I grew up like that. I was like, oh, okay, you know, it's nothing new to me. I just felt bad for my boys because I had to keep moving around with them and they were babies. They were young, you know, they didn't know any better. And I kind of just kept dragging them. So I was like, okay, I got to find something before they start school, you know, because once they start school, you got to keep them there. You know, you can't just keep moving back and forth. So, and that's, you know, when I was at Wings and stuff and going back and forth from here to my mom, you know, I was like, okay, I got to get it together. You know, I got to get it together because they have to start school and I can't be moving them around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So did you find that stability before they started school, or was there still some of that bopping around and changing locations?
At that time, yes. I was living in New Mexico with my mother. Great. So they did start school, you know, first, second, third grade, stuff like that. And then that's, like I said, that's when Angel's dad came about. He sent me a Facebook message. And like I said, I had known him for a while. He was married. And I didn't know at the time when I was 18, when I was dating him before I even had my kids, I didn't know he was married. So I found out he was married through one of my best friends. And she's like, oh, that's so-and-so's husband. And I was like, oh, so I cut it off. And I was like, look, I'm not a homewrecker. I don't want anything to do with you. Leave me alone, please. And he's like, no, I'm not with her anymore, this and that. So I sent her a message and I was like, look, your husband's reaching out to me. I don't want any problems. And she's like, oh no, I'm not with him. You can have him. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, so I went back, you know, they both told me their story and I was like, okay, so I was like, okay, I'll just give it a chance. So they ended up getting divorced and everything. And so I was like, okay, let me give this guy a chance because he was a really nice guy, or what I thought he was a really nice guy. He had his own business and he was doing good for himself, older gentleman. So he's like, you should come out here. Again, I was in the state of New Mexico.
Back to Illinois.
Yes. And my mom did meet him when I was 18. So she's like, oh, maybe, you know, it's meant to be, you know, I don't know, give him a try. So I flew out here. My mom was watching Roger and Ronnie in New Mexico. And she's like, yeah, you can go out there for a couple days, you know. So I went out there and we hit it off again, which we had hit it off before. But this time, you know, it was different because he was divorced. And he was a very nice guy, you know, what I thought was a very nice guy. But again, that's how they start off. And it was good. It was good for, I went to see him and then I went back to New Mexico and he's like, you should move out here. And I was like, okay, and here I go back to Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved back out here, found a place before I brought my boys back. My mom's like, go find a place, figure it out. I'll watch them for a month, figure it out. So I did. He had got an apartment. We all lived together. They came out here, they met him, and it was bad because they had never met him before. And I kind of just threw them into, oh, here's this guy, but they were young. They didn't know any better. They were, I believe Ronnie was 3. Roger was 6, something like that. So, they've never had a male figure. So they're like, okay, they were very good with each other. He took care of us financially while I got a job, while, everything was working out. And that's when I had Angel. Once I had Angel, it took a year and a half for him to for me to notice that this was not a healthy relationship. He started just getting, again, angry with my choices. He didn't want me to be better. I would get a good paying job, get higher positions, and somehow he would just be like, no. And I'm like, why? Let me do better. And he never wanted me to do better than I was. And that's, again, Angel he was 2 years old. And that's when I was like, I gotta get out of this. So again, I ran back to my mom. So it has been, I think I lost count of how many times I was moving back and forth. I just, again, felt bad for my kids. I'm like, sorry guys, but they're like, whatever. They already kind of got used to it. So I went back with my mom again. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I want to see my kid. He is an immigrant, so he does not have papers, so he was not able to go and see him.
Gotcha.
So I was like, okay. And my brother needed a place to stay. So I was like, okay, I love my brother. Let's go back out. So we came back out here a year after Angel was born. So I came back out here, and I got a place of my own with my brother. And that's when my brother was not helping me out financially with the place that we had. So I was like, look, we got to go our separate ways. I didn't have anywhere to go. So that's when I went back with his dad. And I was like, look, this is temporary till I find a place for the boys and I. He's like, yeah, you can stay. We weren't in a relationship, but again, he would start kicking me out. We were there for a couple months. He started kicking me out and I was like, I can't do this. And that's when I started going through the internet, looking for stuff. And that's when I found fellowship housing.
Okay. So let's shift over to fellowship housing then. You've looked for us on the, you looked for help on the internet. You found fellowship housing. How did your journey with fellowship housing begin?
I was working third shift and Angel was 4 years old. So I was ready for a daytime job. And again, with his father kicking me out at random times, I found fellowship housing. I applied. I told them my story and I was asked to come to a second interview. After the second interview, they asked for a third and I was like, awesome. It just felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders because I was struggling and I didn't want my kids to have to keep moving back and forth. I read about the program and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I have a full-time job and I have a vehicle. So hopefully, this is our calling for now. And it was, yeah.
So tell me about the experience of being in fellowship housing. It's not an easy program.
Yes, correct.
Tell the listeners what it was like when you moved in first to that apartment and what that felt like for you and what it felt like for your boys.
It was such a blessing. It felt amazing. Again, I'm used to change. I'm used to following rules. I'm a rule follower, again, especially because it benefits us. It wasn't easy, all the rules that they gave you. But again, I was like, this compared to being in a place that felt like jail, I was like, this was amazing. We felt free. We felt free. And my kids, once your kids get to telling you, Mom, this is not right when you're in a relationship, that's when I was like, okay, we're done, So, and it just felt amazing for my kids to actually have a place of their own because we have never lived alone. We were always living with my mother. We were always living with my brother. We were always living with people. So it just felt amazing. And my kids were so happy.
Seems like there was a switch that turned for you when your boys got to an age, like you said, to say, this is not right, Mom.
Yes.
It
was my oldest. Yes. My oldest who grew up with me. He was like, Mom, why are you with this guy? So my friends, my family would tell me, you can do better, but you don't, you're like, no. And it was until my oldest was like, Mom, this is not right. Why are you putting up with this? And that hit my heart. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, okay, you're right. And that's when I found fellowship, and it was amazing. So
I want to talk about all that you accomplished while you were at Fellowship Housing. But before I do that, you mentioned again in your speech, and I refer back to that because that's when I got to hear the fullness of your story. But you talked about attending therapy and finding spiritual healing. When you come to Fellowship Housing, it's very financially focused, but clearly, based on just what you've shared, there was some healing and some self-worth that you needed to discover. Can you tell us about that journey?
Yes. So it was everything, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Everything. So therapy helped me with my child, kind of heal my childhood traumas that I had. I always believed in God, but I never did the work. I didn't go to church a lot. I wasn't praying a lot, so my friend Cindy was like, you need to go. And it's kind of, fellowship kind of pushes you, like, what are you doing? If you guys kind of give churches out and, so where we can go to help heal your spirituality or start up if you don't have one, or, so it was that, just doing the work. I started going to church every Sunday, and I loved it. I was like, wow, it felt good. It felt good to pray. It felt good because doors started opening up. And then emotionally, I started reading books. Again, with the therapy helped me. I started reading books, which I put in my speech as well, with A Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss and How to Heal. So the books I love reading, and those help me a lot with my mentally and emotional being. And physically, I did the gastric sleeve. So I was able to lose half of my size. I was 260 pounds. I am 130 pounds now. So literally half of me.
My
so
goodness.
that just sealed the physical part of me. So, and it all just towards the end of the 2 years, I was like, wow, I'm not 100% healed, but 80%, everyone's still, no one's 100% healed.
Right.
So every day you're still working on things that you need to better, work on yourself. But for the majority of the part, I was like, wow, it just felt amazing knowing that I was able to, I'm in control of my emotions, and I wasn't like that before. So
that's incredible. Yes. Wow. So let's go back to Fellowship Housing. And, like I said, it's a holistic program.
Yes.
Clearly, you worked on your spiritual, you worked on the physical, you worked on the emotional, and your self-worth as well. But there's a financial component there as well. Talk to us about what was it like to dig into that financial responsibility or requirements that the program has? So
with that, I was already budgeting myself in a journal. It wasn't like the Excel that we do there, which that was easier. But I was always, I did start budgeting because, again, when you're a single mother, you have to know where your money is going and how much you have left over. So it was nice. It was nice to just be better at budgeting. So that helped a lot.
So you worked on budgeting.
Yes.
Part of the program is submitting receipts, working on your credit score. I want to share with our listeners, because you're making it sound really easy.
It's not, but it's not. But again, because they take how much you make, and it wasn't easy because I had 3 boys plus myself, so it wasn't easy. I did make seem like it was easy for me, but only because I had outside help. My mother was always there, and she knew about the program that I was in. My friends knew about the program that I was in. So anything extra that I needed, my friends were giving, very giving, which was amazing.
That is amazing.
So I think that's what kind of helped me get through, like, okay, but
you had an incredible support system. One thing we talk about at Fellowship Housing is the importance of having a community around you, and many single moms don't.
Right.
Tell me about your community. I mean, it was a rich group of people that you had around you supporting you.
Yes. So my mother, who wasn't there, but she's my number one supporter. I go to her for anything, financially, emotionally, everything. So she's always been there for my boys. Again, because she knows I'm a single mother, maybe because she was a single mother. She's like, I know your struggles. So she's always like, here, take my card and buy them clothes or buy them what they need, because she knows that their dad's not around. So I think that's, and my friend Cindy, who is amazing. She knew I was in the program, and she was always just pushing me to just do this, do that, and she, you realize who your friends are when you are at rock bottom, and they stay with you and they help you move up. And she's the one that got me the job where I'm at now too, which is amazing. It's a really good job. So, which I got again when I was starting fellowship housing. It was like everything just started falling into place when I got accepted into the program. So everything just started, a lot of doors started opening.
And what do you think made the difference?
Leaving negative people, leaving Angel's dad, leaving just people that didn't benefit me in my life anymore. People that kind of just wanted to keep me down.
And the coalescing, I would assume, of you getting spiritually healthy, getting physically healthy, emotionally healthy, allowed you to step into this new chapter.
Yes.
That's incredible. So while you were your 2 years at fellowship housing, I just have to share what you accomplished, because it's nothing short of miraculous. You saved $25,000. Your credit score went from 560 to 830.
Yes.
Your salary increased from $29,000 to $42,000. And you came in with a debt of $26,000. You left with zero debt.
Correct. That is correct.
That is incredible.
Yes.
And then what happened when you graduate? So some of our moms will rent on their own. Some of them will purchase a home. Where did you end up going and when you graduated?
So it's funny, because when I graduated, my speech towards the end, I didn't know where I was going to go. So I asked Heather for an extension.
And Heather's our program director.
Correct.
At Fellowship Housing.
So she approved my extension. So I was actually planning to stay with Fellowship until January, because I didn't know where I was going to go. And I thought I was going to be able to do it on my own. I was like, I got this money saved. I can do it on my own. And then I saw the market and I was like, oh, wow, I can't afford any of this on my own. Even with the money saved, it's still like, I think we were able to get maybe like own a studio, or even a 1-bedroom. It was crazy. I was
Which would be very difficult with
correct. Yes.
3 growing boys.
Yes. So that's when my advocate was like, well, Habitat for Humanity has openings, apply. And it was really short. Like Habitat for Humanity, it takes a while for you to get into that. So it was crazy, because Habitat for Humanity of Northern Fox Valley had openings, and I applied. And then there's a brand new building that opened up in October, that was opening in October, called Crescent Place in Arlington Heights. And we got email saying mothers apply. So I was like, okay. So I applied for both a month before I graduated. And actually, it was a couple weeks before the graduation in October. And so at that time I didn't know. And after I graduated, I was staying in fellowship. So we did graduation October 14th, I believe. October 20th, I got a call from Habitat for Humanity, and I got a call from Crescent Place saying you got in. So I got into the apartments to be on the waiting list for Habitat for Humanity. Habitat sent me an email saying you got approved for housing. So I was like, awesome. So everything just fell into place. I called Heather. I was like, look, I don't need the extension anymore. I got into Crescent Place, and Crescent Place was not easy. When you applied for that place, it said, this is like the lottery. We're literally just going to pick people. And if you get in, you get in. If not, sorry. So when I got that call, I was like, because the rent there is amazing for what you get. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. That's what we have now. And I thought I was going to stay there the whole year to wait on Habitat for Humanity, but I didn't. Habitat was like, look, we have a house for you. And I was like, oh, wow. So it was just everything coming together. But I didn't know that back when I graduated. I didn't know where I was going to go. I was thinking, okay, we're going to stay here till January and figure it out. And everything just fell into place a week after I graduated. So I was like, it just felt so good.
Unbelievable.
So good.
So when do you move into your Habitat home?
we don't have a set date yet, but I do have a closing date, which is June 21st. So I already got my appraisal done. My hours are being finished soon, and June 21st is our closing date for the house.
That's incredible.
Yes.
So in just over 2.5 years, you've gone from being homeless to, in June, you will be moving into your very own home.
Correct.
Through a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. That's
Correct.
incredible.
Yes.
And when we were walking in, you shared with me some other news about your job. Would you like to share that as well?
So I work for the Secretary of State. And when I first started there, I was just a regular employee. I've been there same as I've been with Fellowship. So I've only been there for 2 years. I will be 3 years in August. And I have a new position. I have a higher up position. I get paid more and I do a little bit less, but I am a public service representative trainer. So I do the training at the facility that I work at. So it feels amazing knowing that my supervisors, my managers see that I'm a good learner and I do my job. I'm always there early. I get it done and they see that. And they've been seeing that. It's just, I told them, I was like, I need to work on my personal life. Give me a couple more months. And as soon as January of 2024 hit, they're like, we want to offer you this position. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, I'm ready. So everything fell into place the beginning of the year and I was just happy and I took the position and I am very blessed.
You are a completely new person.
I am.
It's quite incredible. This theme of instability in your life. Let me take you back to that quote that you said in your graduation. In 35 years of life, I have never had stability. You've rewritten your story.
Yes. New chapter.
New chapter. That's incredible. For those that are listening right now, that may be stuck in this cycle that you found yourself in, that may be living in this place of instability, that may be returning to a place that isn't healthy time and again, what would you tell them?
Apply for Fellowship. I would tell them just to, there are a lot of resources out there like Fellowship. Just look, there's, a lot of people that are out there that would love to help, that, don't think you're stuck on something. Always look for stuff there are so many people that are willing to help you get through what you're going through.
What would you tell the woman who isn't ready to look for help, but she keeps putting herself back in a situation like you did for a season that was toxic and not healthy? Is there anything differently you would say to her to help her to pause and think about maybe taking that one final step of leaving for good?
Think about your kids. Your kids see everything, even though you don't think they do. They do. Just do it for the kids. Don't stay in a relationship because, you want to keep your family together. No, it's not worth it. Just leave.
Evelyn, it has been so great to hear your story. And I want to thank you for coming and just being vulnerable with us today. I am so proud of how far you've come.
Thank you.
And where you are today. And it's an absolute joy to celebrate this with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure. So I appreciate you guys having me here today.
I want to thank you for tuning in to the Holding Hope podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, would you consider joining our community of followers that finds joy in elevating the story of incredible single moms like Evelyn? You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. If you know a single mom, a family member, a neighbor, or even an acquaintance at church or your child's school, would you reach out? You may be the only one extending a hand of friendship and hope in a very dark time. Introduce them to Fellowship Housing. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about Fellowship Housing, you can find us at fhcmoms.org or on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Thank you for tuning in today and have a great day.